Welcome to Aspen Affairs, where we dive into critical issues shaping our community's future. I'm Debbie Braun, your host. Today, we're discussing Referendum 1, a proposal that would require a 60% supermajority vote to approve any changes to our parks and open spaces. This measure underscores Aspen's commitment to preserving its natural beauty, but also raises questions about potential impacts on future development and economic vitality. Before we begin, just a friendly reminder that the regular municipal election is on Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. Early voting options are available, and all registered voters will receive a mail-in ballot. Ensure your voter registration is up to date and that your mailing address is correct. For more information on the voting procedures, including early voting and mail-in ballot deadlines, please visit the Aspen City Clerk's website. Joining me today are two esteemed guests, Howie Mallory, a dedicated advocate for environmental conservation and a member of the Open Space and Trails Board, and Terry Paulson, a former Aspen City Council member known for his perspectives on development and environmental issues. Welcome, both of you. Thanks for joining.
Nice to be here.
Thanks
for being here.
Well, I want to just jump right in. Howie.
Oh my goodness.
Are you ready for me?
Do my best.
Yes. Well, you've championed efforts to protect Aspen's open spaces. How do you see this referendum aligning with the broader goals of preserving Aspen's natural beauty and community identity?
The referendum 1, which is calling for a 60% positive vote, I think it's essential for Aspen's identity, way of life, and economy as well, because what we really have to offer is a vibrant and well-managed landscape around Aspen to identify what we're here in town for and where our responsibility is, to carve up a dedicated long-term open space with what would potentially be a very small vote in favor of it based on our historical pattern of voting, less than 50% people turning out for these votes, I think would be detrimental to Aspen's identity, Aspen's quality of life.
Terry, as a former city council member and considering your experience and your perspectives, why is a supermajority, why is it really necessary? And like I said, not to sound cynical, but couldn't this just be a tactic viewed as a way to make the use of Maroldt less likely?
Well, obviously, very controversial question.
Yeah. Hitting you with the hard ones right out of the gate.
Yeah, I know, right? Well, 60% is necessary because there's been past votes on various subjects where I've only won by 4 or 5 votes. Most famous one is Lift 1A, where it passed by, 24, 26 votes, whatever it was.
Feels less than that, yeah.
And that was, if that had been at 60%, I think we would have seen a different outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we're heading with the Maroldt property. That property is super valuable to the community. It's been there since I've been there. Obviously, it got sold from the family that originally owned it. But it was still a ranch and open space, cemetery, and all that was all part of that huge ranch. Yeah. Mm-hmm. To me, it would be a crime to let it pass into some kind of a development project.
Yeah. I do love the poppy field over there. I do.
Poppies are the best.
They really are.
Yeah.
Howie, if the use of open space were to deliver an outsized environmental benefit, mainly by making mass transit more appealing, which was achieved by adding the bus lanes as part of the Maroon Creek Bridge replacement and building the bus lanes between the airport and the roundabout, is the use of open space appropriate then?
You're asking if would it be appropriate for a special
if you were to deliver
corridor,
like this by getting more people onto the buses and out of the cars, that could be considered an environmental benefit. Do you think that there's any time where that open space could be appropriate to use open space?
right now, it seems that RAFTA is pretty much at its capacity for delivering people to and from Aspen. And to cut the open space up with a concrete platform just to have a dedicated corridor for mass transit, I don't think it's going to increase the additional amount of ridership coming in and departing from town.
Okay,
Yeah, I want to jump in on that too.
great.
You know, we have an existing bus system right now, and as Howie just said, it's at capacity. We need to take a step forward and get into something that's actually going to work for the community. And I hate to use the word sacred cow, but if so be it, the Merolda is a sacred cow. It needs to be something out there that's really going to do a favor to the community. And it involves environment, it involves a business community. I mean, all these things are feeding into something, what makes Aspen special.
Yeah. Terry, with the ongoing discussions about workforce housing and transit hubs, how could this referendum impact the ability to adapt open spaces for these critical needs?
Well, could you rephrase that question I just said?
Sure. There's been, in the community, we talk about workforce housing and these different transit hubs, and I'm thinking the airport and the development that's going out there. Do you think this referendum could impact the ability to use open spaces?
Well, first of all, the lumberyard project, just for one, it's going to add another 10% to the community for probably cars, people, jobs, et cetera. And here again, what is it going to take to get people out of their cars? We have an existing bus system. It actually flows well through the S-curves. I don't see any reason why we should do anything with the open space.
With the open space. You know, our members, we polled them and said, how many of you use RAFTA? And 70% said they do not. And then the next question was, why? Why aren't you? And a lot of them said, listen, we are in favor of the environment. We'd like more EV charging stations. We have kids, we have pets, we have this. But they really started to talk about that last mile or two, that they don't have those options for it. So really, like, some traffic mitigation and some options for the last couple miles is really what our businesses are looking for. But the transit hubs, I don't know if putting more buses on the road is the right thing to do, but people say that the reliability of the service isn't good enough, which is why they're in their cars.
I don't know. I mean, everybody has the reasons why they're driving the car. I work at the airport. I can't get to the airport at 5 in the morning with the bus because they don't run till 6 in the morning. So that's my excuse.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd be on the bus.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's 1,000 other reasons the same.
Right.
So there's an interesting statistic out there that right now there's 1.3 single occupant vehicles, I should say 1.3 persons per vehicle. This is a weird statistic. But if we raised that to 1.7, there wouldn't be any congestion. So 0.4% would make a huge difference on going through the S-curves. And it's a matter of getting people out of their cars, but RAFTA is like way behind the 8 ball because there's no park and ride spaces out there anymore.
Right.
I mean, I ride the bus to Glenwood quite often, and I'm always looking at the park and rides. They're full.
Yeah.
So there are people that are doing their job. Well, I shouldn't say their job, but doing the best for
The best that they can.
they can.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, Terry.
sorry, I jumped in there.
No, I'd like to follow up
Great.
on Terry's comment because I think there's a perception that RAFTA is maxed out, but RAFTA does have the responsibility, I think, to look forward enough to add increased parking at these key nodes so that people do see that they can park their car, get on the bus, and get into town faster, more reliably.
Yeah.
Because these other proposed alignments really are not going to reduce the amount of car traffic.
I agree, and I think it's also not going to. I commute, so I'm one of the commuters, 1.0, not 1.3, and I've given up the idea that anything that we do is really going to have a big impact on the time that I travel. I've had to look for alternate ways to travel, like not during rush hour, working remotely. So in a business, I have the ability to do that. I think sometimes our frontline employees don't as much. You know, they have to be there. But Howie, I was going to ask you, and we talked about it earlier before the show started, you're on the Open Space and Trails Board, and they voted 4-1 to oppose Referendum 1, and you were the dissenting vote. But I'm just curious, like, were you guys just voting on the referendum? Were you talking bigger? Like, how did that vote happen? And why didn't you convince your other fellow members?
Well, obviously, I'm not a smooth-talking politician. I wasn't able to do that. I think that the urgency to push for a 60% vote approval wasn't convincingly presented at our Open Space and Trails Board meeting.
Okay.
Because I think in everybody's heart, a majority is what you need.
Yeah.
Okay. We didn't really have a chance to debate the nuances of going from 50% to 60%, because I think 60% represents a very important threshold, because our entrance to Aspen really defines the town. It's that, because when you think about the other developments that are going to happen outside the more Marolta open space, it's going to be a very crowded corridor.
Yeah.
We've got the lumberyard coming up, we've got the new airport, Buttermilk's going to get redeveloped, as well as the old Alberta Moore property that goes up towards the high school. That's going to have houses and employee housing as well. So it's critical, to me, it's critical that the green space, the fresh air of the Thomas Marolta property linked up with the Moore property across the road, that's preserved, also in connection with the golf course area.
Right. Okay. Terry, what does a truly effective entrance to Aspen solution look like to you?
Well, when the train was voted on, to me that would have been a great plus for the community. However, that's gone. Probably never going to come back.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. So we're kind of stuck with buses. Now, there is a future out there that we don't necessarily have to rely on buses. I just became aware of this thing called Doppelmayr. It's some kind of a gondola system that connects communities, etc. And I've heard that Terry Tigg has actually got a preliminary design of having something at the airport shuttling people into town.
Yeah, we were in New Zealand, our sister city. The Chamber did a trip earlier this year, and Queenstown, our sister city, is working with a company called Whoosh, and it's on-demand gondola system. And it's not on a fixed line, so it can go like this, and then it can turn like that and go like this. And Queenstown will be the first place to have it running in 2028. So I'm excited to go back and see. But technology is changing, and there are solutions. And I know we've all joked over the years about the gondola, but now there seems to be the technology is rapidly changing, and we could take advantage.
To me, that's one possible future. And why sacrifice open space if we don't have to? We can just hold off a little longer till we figure this out. Yeah.
And we're talking about a small sliver of the open space that they're talking about taking, is it like 2 acres out of 70-some acres?
It's like 2.9 or something.
2.9 out of 76 acres. So we're still preserving, but we're just putting something right in the heart of it.
Well, I don't know if you've seen the aerial picture of the
No.
Marolta, but it's got a heart. There's the garden that splits the heart.
Yep.
So you got the one side with the traffic side and the other one where the paragliders land.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the heart of Aspen. It would be a shame to byspec that.
Yeah. Howie, if a new EIS or some processes were to come up with an entrance solution that makes use of Marolta and would objectively make the entrance more functional going forward, would you support it?
Repeat the first part of the two-part question.
Yeah. if this, when we go through the new EIS study, and we would come up with a solution for the entrance, but we'd still have to use part of Merolt's. But it would make the entrance much more functional going forward. Would you support it?
Well, I'd certainly want to look at it.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're sort of we're stuck right now.
Yeah.
We need some breakthrough thinking, breakout thinking, and one option could be to bury the entrance into Aspen, the alignment that's being proposed under the preferred alternative, I believe. That's an expensive option, but that accomplishes the open space needs and requirements. From your question, yeah, I'd be open-minded to do it. Absolutely, why not? We're not getting anywhere standing with our feet right now in the mud.
It's true.
I want to support that question also, what he's saying. If there truly was an option out there that would be fantastic for Aspen and its future, not killing the golden goose and all that sort of thing,
right?
Why not support it?
Yeah.
But the way this is being laid out right now, we don't have that alternative unless we support Referendum 1 to make sure the community is solidly behind whatever happens there. And I shouldn't even say this, but Referendum takes that vote away. And that's the downside of number 2.
I think when I think about 1, we're changing the charter, which we say we don't like to do. Like, I don't like messing around with the home rule charter. We're doing a supermajority, right, the 60-40, and I do get concerned that if only 50% of Aspen is voting, then could a minority of 20% say thumbs up, thumbs down? So that is something that we've been thinking about. And then I think the third thing, which we haven't talked about, and I'd love to get your perspective, is if it goes to a vote, infrastructure projects could potentially be delayed by 20 months waiting to sync up with the November election. So it wouldn't be a special election. It would have to sync up with that November election. And that was purposeful, right? To do that. Business is worried about infrastructure projects and getting those held up. So I'd love to hear more about the thinking behind why we would potentially have up to 20 months to wait to vote.
Well, just go back a few months. The Friends of Merollt, when they got involved with whatever this is going on right now, started out as just fix the bridge, Castle Creek Bridge.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how convoluted this whole process has gotten over the last few months. We went from a let's fix the bridge.
It was a good campaign.
It was a good campaign, and there's still a lot of force behind that, and it's, it's deteriorating. We don't have 10 or 15 years to fix it.
Yeah.
So that's part of the project of getting this whole thing, 60% majority. And the existing alignment is already, in the record of decision, is spoken for by CDOT and the community.
Yeah.
So number 2 actually takes away all those rights of being able to speak to the community and what we want. It's very puzzling to me how this thing got so convoluted. It's almost like the other side panicked and said, oh no, we're never going to get 60%. We need to pass something and change the charter. That way it's solidly in place.
It does seem like Referendum 2 came about because of Referendum 1, right? Yeah. So it then went from fix the bridge, stupid, I think was fix the bridge, to like a lot of stuff. And not, Aspen is great, and we have a very, very passionate electoral and residents, but not everybody's involved all the time. So do you think the 60-40 helps that or hurts that a little bit?
I think it forces the community to be much more involved in the decision making.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
And well, also, I don't know, what was the percentage of the vote last time that the community voted on something? It's not like we have 100% turnout. It's always like less than 50%.
Well, that's what scares me, Terry.
So you take 60% of 50%, or 40%, or however you look at it.
But the inverse could be said for the 40%, which is actually only 20%? And do we really want 20% of Aspen deciding the future? I think we look at it both ways.
Yeah.
It's scary because only 50% of a really smart
part of our-
community is voting. Get out and vote.
It's almost like we need a mandatory vote in Aspen.
I think so.
Say that
A
again?
A
mandatory vote.
mandatory
in Aspen.
vote,
yeah.
yeah. I did get a question from one of our members, and I don't even know if you guys would know the answer to it, but how might this referendum impact potential partnerships with state and federal agencies for infrastructure funding?
I think if it passes that a 60% majority is required,
Yeah.
that would say to our potential partners, that's a strong community interest to go in that direction.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see more,
So it could be helpful.
which could be helpful. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the availability of funds could be very scarce going forward over the next 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, for something to pass 50% plus one vote doesn't speak for the community. Whether you're a business owner or just a private citizen living here, retired or whatever, it doesn't speak to the community. That's why 60% is super important. And,
But don't we do most things around here by 50 plus one?
there's a lot of things, but this is super important for the community.
Okay.
And, if this passes, I suspect that you'll see more of those kind of referendums coming up. Whether it's a business community, whatever project, who
Yeah.
knows? But, it's the community needs to step forward and say, this is what we want.
Right, that would be great because I feel like in 25 years, we just keep getting mixed messages, right? A lot of mixed messages. And I'm not sure if these two referendums are helping us right now. I feel like we've convoluted again. And so how do you guys have an idea of how to make it?
See, if referendum one would have stayed on the ballot by itself, and then the other stuff could follow suit,
Yeah,
it would have been a much simpler election. Because then the community speaks, we know where we stand.
right,
We can talk to CDOT and the feds, get the funding and whatever, and make that work.
yeah. You guys, you have a couple minutes. We have just a few minutes left of our show. But I'm wondering, Terry, pitch it out to the community right now. Why should we vote yes on referendum one?
Well, first of all, it's a vote. Referendum 2 takes that vote away. Future votes, I should say. I want to clarify that.
Okay.
So to me, that's number one. This community has always wanted to vote on stuff. That's why we've had 29 votes or whatever it's been.
Good point.
So, and you know what? When the train went away, and it's been, 27 years now or whatever, if something was going to happen there, it would have happened by now.
Right.
That tells me that there's something that's not quite right yet, and we need to keep going into the future and look at that and what's best for Aspen.
Yeah. What do you think, Howie?
Well, I think that there is a fatigue with this issue, and that's why referendum 2, to me, is really dangerous, because I think that the voting public says, let's just get something done and move on with it, without really understanding the long-term ramifications of the area that we call the entrance to Aspen. Referendum 1 really puts a burden of responsibility on a greater part of the community to be thoughtful and to be a participant in what really defines the image and the feel of Aspen, as opposed to having the risk is creeping development along our open spaces for other uses that really are in competition with the open space objectives.
Pitkin County's been famous over the years for creating open space. There's a huge difference between Garfield County and Eagle County and Pitkin. And you can sense it when you're driving along.
Exactly.
You got all these open space in it, and we can't give that up. That's part of who we are.
Well, you know that song, Pave Paradise to put up a parking lot. Not the best, not always the best idea. You guys are proponents for Ref 1, but you're also against Ref 2, right?
Yes.
So I think you mentioned you were against Ref 2 because you feel like it takes away the vote of the people. Howie, do you have some reasons why you don't support Ref 2?
I would second Terry's statement on that. I think Ref 2 represents a frustration and exhaustion on the part of important people in the community that they just as soon abandon the objectives of protecting our open space, particularly when they're not providing a convincing solution of traffic reduction, carbon monoxide levels, those kinds of things. We're in a mature enough and responsible enough community. We should be able to manage a better solution for us going into the future.
Well, I want to second that. Even the city, what's called the construction department, traffic department, has admitted that this entrance across the road does not solve traffic problems. I mean, it's coming from the city themselves.
Right.
And the group that's representing Referendum 2 has not admitted that. They leave that out of all their publicity so far.
Well, doesn't the Jacobson engineering report state that it's just like 2 to 3 minutes we're catching back? We're not, I mean, that's just 2 to 3 minutes.
That's gone back 20-some years when the ROD was put together. It only saves 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So why are we spending $150 million on something that doesn't work?
Right. Well, your proponents, the other side would say, then we're talking about evacuation routes and those types of things. And that's kind of come to light because of, obviously, the fires in L.A. But then, is it that? Or is it the traffic? So that's the confusing part of we're just saying a lot of stuff. But what is it actually going to deliver?
Well, there's somebody wiser than me actually said, when you speak, the first filter you should put it through is truth.
That would be nice.
And I'm finding that Referendum 2 doesn't speak to truth. So
It's really not improving one objective of faster traffic flow. That's people won't admit that, but I think that has to be clear, as you pointed out, 2 or 3 minutes going across the existing bridge.
There's also a misconception from the people that I've talked to that think that it's going to be an unrestricted 4-lane going in and out of Aspen. It's still 1 lane in, 1 lane out.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
myth busting we got to be doing.
That's myth busting,
yeah, that's
exactly.
good to know.
Well, one thing that's not being addressed, I think, are the choke points. Our roundabout is not really being made part of the traffic management projection and planning. And there's going to be yet another traffic light at the lumber yard. Plus, the airport's going to be making some changes as well. So it's unfortunate that the vote for Referendum 1, is it 1 or 2?
1
One.
or 2 is...
Well, 2, yeah.
2 is for the...
basically giving an easement.
You're giving the
across
easement, expanded easement across that.
Right.
That's not going to, as you said, not going to add, save more than a couple of minutes.
So there's another mythbuster out there.
I'll take it.
When the whole ROD was put together, the HOV lanes started in Basalt.
Yeah.
People are single occupant all the way to Buttermilk, where it turns into 2 lanes. And the county not refuses, but said it's unenforceable. If that was enforceable, you would see a string all the way down to Parachute. Because we've allowed that over the years. Now it's putting the burden on Aspen. So we really need to relook at that and say, this HOV lane needs to be enforced. Maybe even from Brush Creek into town versus...
I could tell you from Basalt into Aspen, we don't even think about an HOV lane. Like, there's no... I think I'd be shocked. Because you forget. I've been doing it for 20 years. You're just kind of moving with the traffic. So some enforcement and some traffic management could be helpful for the entrance.
For sure.
Well, thank you, Howie and Terry, for sharing your valuable insights. Referendum 1 presents a pivotal decision point for Aspen, balancing the preservation of our open spaces with the need for infrastructure. improvements. So as Election Day approaches on March 4th, 2025, I encourage all residents to educate themselves on this measure and participate in the voting process. Remember, early voting and mail-in ballot options are available. I'm Debbie Braun, the host of Aspen Affairs. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, my guest. You guys are wonderful.
Thank you,
and
Debbie.
really appreciate everything you've done for Aspen since day one, since I've been here. And I've been here 25 years. So you guys have been on the forefront of a lot, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks.